Shalom Aleichem, everybody. I've decided, given that I had the great zechus that on both sides of my family, I had both an uncle of my mother and an uncle of my father who always used to tell me divrei Torah. In fact, my father's uncle, Uncle Leiby Ashkelon, every Shabbos, before Shabbos, I used to speak to him on the phone and he used to tell me divrei Torah, which was so unbelievable, and they've never been recorded anywhere. Similarly, my mother's uncle, Reb Lezer Bernath, he wrote a sefer actually. He did record his divrei Torah, which some of his own Chiddushim and some things that he heard from his Rabbonim and from his own father, my great-grandfather, Reb Bernath, wrote the sefer Domesek Eliezer. So I've decided to record every now and again when I see a beautiful vort that either Loli Bachi wrote or my uncle Leiby, and to put them down for posterity in these short videos. This week, we read in Parshas Nitzavim the following pasuk: Ki ha-mitzvah hazois asher anochi mitzavcho hayoim. Hashem tells us this mitzvah, lo nifleisi mimcho v'lo rechoiko hi. This is very attainable. It's lo bashamayim. It's not in the sky. It's easy. You can easily access this mitzvah. And the question is asked, which mitzvah? So according to Rashi, it's the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, as it says, Ki koroi ve'lecho hadover mo'od beficho v'lvavcho la'asoisoi. Rashi says we got the Torah shebichsav and the Torah shebal peh, and this mitzvah hazois is learning Torah. In the Ramban, in the Perush of the Ramban, he says that this refers to the mitzvah of Teshuva. Why? We always read Parshas Nitzavim the week immediately before Rosh Hashanah, which is when the mitzvah of Teshuva is at its peak. And derech remez, via a hint, we can see that this mitzvah talks about Teshuva. This is according to the vort of my uncle Lezer Bernath. He says as follows: if you look at the pasuk Ki ha-mitzvah hazois, this mitzvah, zois is gematria 408. 408 is important because on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the climax of the Unasana Toikef, we say Utshuva, Utfilo, Utzdoko, Ma'avirines Roya HaGezero. These three things, Teshuva, Tefillah, and Tzedakah, these are what can avert the stern decree. And on top in the Machzor, if you look in the Machzor, on top of each of these words, there's another word written in small print. Tzoim, Koil, and Momoin. On top of Tshuva and Tefillah and Tzedakah, it says the words Tzoim, fasting, Koil, which is Tefillah with our voice, and Momoin, Tzedakah is money. And if you look at each of those words, the gematria of each of those words is 136. Each of Tzoim, Koil, and Momoin is 136, which together, the three of them, is 408. In other words, by combining Tshuva, Tefillah, and Tzedakah, we reach Zois. We reach the 408 of Zois, which is a beautiful idea. So what's amazing is that my uncle Lezer Bernath goes on to say that during this time we also say L'Dovid Hashem Oiri V'Yishi. And in that kapitel, there is a pasuk that says, Im tokum alai milchama, bezois ani boiteach. If we're in a war, which is a war against the Yetzer Hara, then if we remember these three things, Tzoim, Koil, and Momoin, bezois ani boiteach, in the 408 of Teshuvah, Tefillah, and Tzedakah, we will be able to be ma'avirin es roya ha'gezera. So there's another hint of this Zois in the L'Dovid Hashem Ori V'Yishi. And finally, he goes on to say that in Tehillim, there's a pasuk, Ish ba'ar lo yedo, uchsil lo yovin Zois. Which is an unbelievable remez, he says. The Yetzer Hara, when we're in a war with the Yetzer Hara, always tries to convince us, no, you don't have to do so much. You're okay. You have to do Tshuva, Tefillah, and Tzedakah. Don't worry, if you do Teshuva and Tefillah, it's also going to be enough. You'll be able to avert the stern decree. Or you'll only do Tefillah and Tzedakah. You don't have to go all the way. The Yetzer Hara tries to use convincing methods to convince us to do less. So what does he say here? Ish ba'ar lo yeda. Ba'ar is the gematria of only 2 times 136. Ba'ar is the gematria of 272, which is only 2 of the things, Tzoim and Koil. The Yetzer Hara says you don't have to do the third one, but he's saying here, no. Uchsil, if you're silly, lo yovin zois, you won't understand the importance of the zois of the 408. And I want to add that the word ba'ar actually makes up the word ra'av, which stands for hungry or famine. In other words, ish ba'ar lo yeda, if you won't do the tzoim, and the Yetzer Hara will convince you only to do koil and momoin is not going to be enough. So that's a beautiful vort that we have in the Sefer of Domestic Eliezer, and it's mamish a great merit that we have in my own mishpacha such beautiful Torahs floating around, and which I have the zchus to record it here for posterity. Wishing everybody a ksiva v'chasima toiva, shona toiva mesuka.